Hey guys, Plonkerboy900 here and welcome back to a brand new challenge video. A few weeks ago I made a challenge run on Crystal that was a no catching Nuzlocke, which basically meant I had to rely on gift Pokemon and game corner prizes. Needless to say, this wasn't the easiest challenge I've ever done, but it was really fun. I had a few comments saying that they wanted to see this live, so that's what I did. Over the course of a week I live streamed the entire run, so if you were there to see it live you already know what happens, but for those of you who missed it, you'll just have to watch and find out for yourselves. The rules are the same as the last time I did this challenge. It's your typical Nuzlocke rules, in that if a Pokemon faints, it's then considered dead and must be released. Now normally you would catch one Pokemon per route, but in this particular challenge I'm not actually allowed to catch any Pokemon. So instead I have to rely on game corner prize Pokemon and gift Pokemon. I'm only allowed one of each of these, with one exception, but I'll get to that. First of all, shout out goes to these people, who were the first to comment the timestamp of the dabbing Delibird. He'll be in this video as well, so if you see it, just comment down below the timestamp and you might get featured in the next video. With all that said, let's get on with the challenge. I start the game and pick the male character this time, and thanks to the chat, we name ourselves Shrek. I guess comment down below if you get the reference. As always, we name our rival Zwigo and the challenge begins. After many debates in the live chat, we eventually decide our starter should be Squirtle. Blastoise is an all-round good Pokemon, and a water type is always useful, so I think this was a good choice. All our nicknames get chosen by the chat, so they decide that Squirtle should be called Leonardo. We very nearly fall at the first hurdle, as Zwigo's Bulbasaur brings us all the way down to red health, but we do just pull through and win the first match. This would become a recurring theme though. The second rival fight we almost lose as well. By the time we beat Pidgey, we only have 10 health remaining. The only reason we won this fight is because we got an insanely lucky critical hit for the victory. I think we may have lost without that. We arrive in Pewter City where we can take on the first gym leader Brock. This fight was about as easy as you'd expect though. Geodude gets destroyed by a water gun, and then Onix misses his move and goes down to one water gun as well. Did anyone expect anything less though? Upon winning the battle, Leonardo goes to level 16 and evolves into Wartortle. This is great news because we don't really get a good team member for a while. We arrive at the entrance of Mount Moon where we can actually get our next team member. For 500 Pokédollars we get ourselves a Magikarp. We name it Cap and make our way through Mount Moon. While there, I pick the Dome Fossil. I'm sorry, blame them, not me. Now we arrive in Cerulean City and take on the second gym leader Misty. This fight went pretty well. Staryu gets flinched by Bite immediately, so we can take it out with one more. And her last Pokemon Starmie is weak to Dark. She does outspeed and hit a Water Pulse, but Bite does a lot of damage. She just decides to go for Swift the next turn though, so one more Bite takes it out and we win. That was almost as easy as Brock. Zwigo gives us yet another scare though. His Pidgeot comes out first and doesn't really cause many problems, as a Mega Punch and Water Pulse combo were enough to KO. Next up is the Bulbasaur though. We do get a lucky flinch with Bite, and the second one brings it down to red health, but he goes for Sleep Powder. This is where things get scary. His Vine Whips aren't doing huge damage, but they're racking up fast. We wake up though at the most important time, and finish it off with one more Bite. His last two Pokemon don't cause any problems though. Abra goes down to one Bite, and Rattata goes down to a Water Pulse. So we win, but that's the third close call rival fight in a row. We get the SS ticket from Bill, and we're even able to evolve Cap into a Gyarados. I was beyond happy about having this on the team. Gyarados is a great Pokemon, so it'll definitely serve me well, right? There's yet another rival fight, but this one wasn't actually too difficult because we have Gyarados on the team. We actually win this time without any real problems, and we get the HM for Cut. This means we can get some more team members. We travel through Rock Tunnel where we face off against this one trainer, but this ended up being a huge mistake. I'll just let the live commentary speak for itself. It's fine, it's fine. It's not fine. It's not fine. No. Rest in peace, Cap. We do eventually make it out of Rock Tunnel though, and place Gyarados in the PC. You were taken from us far too early. You will be missed. We now arrive in Celadon City where we can get our next team members. First up, if we head to the top of this building we can get ourselves an Eevee. I actually came up with this name myself, calling it Fire Breath. Now obviously this gives away which evolution we're going to get, but it's also a reference to one of my favourite challenge runners, the Breath. Make sure you all subscribe to his channel, link will be in the description. Eevee's not the only Pokemon we can get though. I buy as many coins in the game corner as I can and we buy 2 Abras. This is what I meant when I said there'd be one exception to the rule of one of each Pokemon. We're actually going to be trading away one of these Abras and keeping the other one. The chat suggests that I name the one that we're keeping Abra. Great name there guys, great name. We also buy ourselves a Clefairy and we decide on the nickname Clover. This is a good name because I really thought this was going to be our lucky charm. I use a Firestone on Fire Breath to evolve it into a Flareon, and upon returning to Vermilion City we even evolve Leonardo all the way into a Blastoise. Is this a little bit overpowered for this point in the game? Yes, but I'll take everything I can get. We return to Vermilion and take on the 3rd gym leader, Lieutenant Surge. But let's just say this fight was incredibly easy. Blastoise one-hit KOs both the Voltorb and the Pikachu with a Water Pulse, and it's already down to his final Pokemon Raichu. We outspeed and hit with a Water Pulse which doesn't quite take it out, but it does confuse him, and he hurts himself in confusion and goes down. That was anticlimactic. I evolve Abra into Kadabra, which if you've seen some of my previous videos you'll know is overpowered, and we trade away the other Abra in exchange for a Mr. Mime. I'm feeling pretty good about having 2 Psychic types on the team, not gonna lie. While we're in the area, I pick up the old Amber. We can get an Aerodactyl from this later, which is definitely something I want on the team. We travel back to Celadon where we can take on the 4th gym, and this actually ended up being quite difficult. First up is Victory Bell, so I start with Kadabra and go straight for a Psybeam. It does good damage but not quite enough to KO and we get hit with a Stun Spore. Thanks to our Synchronize she gets paralysed as well, but she hits us with an Acid for big damage. We still outspeed though, so one more Psybeam knocks it out, and next up is Tangela. I swap in Fire Breath but we don't have a fire move, so I just go for Bite. Does over half though, but we do get poisoned. That's not really a problem though, as one more bite finishes it off, and it's down to our final Pokemon Vileplume. I send in Mr. Mime and go for Confusion, but it doesn't do as much as I was expecting. We get paralysed as well, and then hit with a Giga Drain for quite a lot of damage. I hit one more Confusion, bringing it down to about half, before deciding to swap back into Fire Breath. We take a Giga Drain no problem and go for Quick Attack, but it's not quite enough and we get hit with an Acid. I go for one more Quick Attack to KO, but she goes for a Hyper Potion, of course. I don't want to lose Fire Breath, so I have to make a decision. I decide that Mr. Mime is probably the weakest link of the team, so I send it out as a sacrifice as we get hit with an Acid, but he actually survives. Well, that's a bit awkward. I decide to stay in and just take another hit though so we can get a safe switch, and Mr. Mime goes down. I swap in Leonardo, who's our strongest Pokemon by far, and go for Mega Punch, which does decent damage. She does hang on though and hit another Stun Spore, which is not ideal. I go for Protect to try and stall out the Giga Drain PP, but we get fully paralysed and hit with a Giga Drain, which doesn't do too much. I'm able to use Protect this turn though, and she wastes her final Giga Drain. She goes for Acid this turn for really small damage, but we miss the Mega Punch. This is just the beginning of the bad luck though. Once again, I think the live commentary will say this better than I ever could. So badly wrong. But she's run out of Giga Drain. So that's something. Oh my, are you serious? Are you serious? Oh my god. I cannot believe what is happening right now. Okay, we finally hit. Okay. We just need one more hit. Okay, we did it. That was closer than I would have liked. Vileplume goes down and we win the 4th badge, but not without a casualty. We say goodbye to Mr. Mime and take on Giovanni, but he really didn't cause us any problems. Leonardo's just way too strong. We beat him with ease and move on to the Pokemon Tower where we face our rival again, but this was really easy as well. So now we can make our way to Fuchsia City, but before we do that I actually buy another Pokemon, that being Dratini, which the chat affectionately named Boop. Not gonna lie, that is a cute name for a Dratini. Dragonite is an incredibly good Pokemon, so I hope I can keep it alive long enough to get that far. We also use a Moonstone on Clover to evolve it into a Clefable. We arrive in Fuchsia City and take on the 5th gym leader, Koga. First up is a Coughing, so I start with Kadabra, and easily KO with a single Psybeam. Muck is out next, so I swap into Fire Breath, and go for Dig as he sets up a Minimize. Luckily we don't miss though, and Dig does about half. Because of this, one more Dig is enough to take it out, without us even taking damage. A second Coughing comes out but easily goes down to a Psybeam as well, so it's already down to his final Pokemon, Wheezing. I stay in, feeling confident, and go for a Psybeam. Surely that'll KO, right? What's the worst that could happen? Come on. Oh no, okay. Oh no, please, please. No! No! We just lost Kadabra. That is the second time we've lost a Kadabra in a Nuzlocke. I swap in Leonardo and go for Surf, which is enough to finish it off and we win the fight, but it is a bittersweet victory. We deposit Kadabra in the PC. You will be sorely missed. With that, I think it's time to get a new team member. We take down all the trainers in the Saffron City dojo, and we're given the choice of 2 Pokemon. Collectively, we decide on Hitmonchan, and name it Hitmonbruh, in loving memory of Kadabra. Hitmonchan's not a great Pokemon in Gen 3, but having a fighting type on the team should be useful. I do some more training, and in the process we evolve Boop into a Dragonair. That's one step closer to that elusive Dragonite. We take back the Silph Co from Team Rocket, and in the process get challenged by Zwigo once again. Pidgeot is out first and Leonardo is actually faster. Surf does a great amount of damage as well, and his wing attack hardly does anything. Because of this, one more Surf is enough to take it out, and next up is his starter Venusaur. I swap into our newly evolved Clover, but we immediately get put to sleep. We take a few hits no problem, but we still haven't woken up. I decide it's probably smart to swap out, so I go into Fire Breath. We take a Razor Leaf no problem, but next time we both miss our moves. I try for another Fire Spin, but this time he doesn't miss and we get put to sleep again. His only way of attacking us is Razor Leaf though, so I'm not really that scared. Eventually we wake up and hit a Fire Spin, but it does hardly anything. He still keeps spamming Sweet Scent though, so this time I go for Dig, which actually does a decent amount of damage. Thanks to the residual damage from Fire Spin, one more Dig is enough to KO. Next up is Gyarados, so I swap into Hitmonbruh, as we have Thunder Punch. He hits us with a Dragon Rage though, which always does 40 damage, and that means we can't actually survive 2 of those. Thunder Punch hardly does any damage, so I have to switch out. I go into Leonardo, who takes a Dragon Rage no problem, and we fire back with a Bite which makes him flinch. One more Bite is not quite enough to KO, and he hits back with his own Bite, but it hardly does any damage, so one more knocks it out. Zwigo's final Pokemon is Alakazam, so I swap back into Fire Breath as he goes for Future Sight. I go for Bite though for really good damage, and next turn he goes for Future Sight again. As always, Alakazam with the 10,000 IQ there. One more Bite is enough to finish it off and we win. That could have gone so much worse. We get ourselves a Lapras, which I name Nessie, and take on Giovanni once again, but we have Leonardo, so this fight was a complete joke. We basically just sweep his entire team with Surf. Our next challenge is the 6th Gym Leader, Sabrina. She starts with Kadabra as I lead with Clover, and she immediately sets up a Reflect. Strength still does a great amount of damage though, surprisingly, and she just goes for Future Sight this turn, so we knock it out with one more Strength. Mr. Mime is out next and goes with Barrier, which means our Strength hardly does any damage. I decide to swap into Leonardo, who gets hit with the Psybeam for a small amount and then the Future Sight. We take the hits no problem though and fire back with a Surf, which almost knocks it out but not quite. She sets up a Calm Mind and then uses a Hyper Potion, but 2 more Surfs are enough to KO. Venomoth is out next, so I stay in and go for Surf, which almost takes it out from full health. She does hang on though and go for a Psybeam, but it hardly does anything. She does use a Hyper Potion, but one more Surf brings it back down to red, and a second one knocks it out without any problems. Sabrina's final Pokemon is Alakazam, so I swap back into Clover. She goes straight for the Calm Mind as I hit a Strength for over half. I put my faith in Clover's bulk and go for another Strength as she hits a Psychic. Clover actually survives though, and one more Strength finishes it off, winning us the fight. Okay, I'll admit it, that was a bit risky, but it paid off, so I'll take it. Before heading to Cinnabar Island, I catch a Pokemon to fly. In doing this, I infuriate the chat by using a Master Ball on a level 19 Pidgey. The more angry this makes you, the funnier I find it. We arrive in Cinnabar Island, and the first thing I do is release that same Pidgey. We then get our fossils resurrected. This gets us an Aerodactyl, which we name Petri, which will definitely be going on the team, and Kabuto, which I call Lord Helix because that's hilarious. He'll be in the PC for the moment though as a backup. With that, I take on the 7th Gym Leader, Blaine. This gym was about as easy as you'd expect, as we have a Blastoise. Growlithe is out first but goes down to 1 Surf, and next up is Ponyta, so I swap into Boop. This was very nearly a big mistake though, as we barely hang on from a Fire Blast, but thankfully 2 Surfs are enough to KO. That was probably a bit too risky, so I swapped back into Blastoise for his final 2 Pokemon. Rapidash gets outsped and KO'd by a single Surf, so it's already down to his final Pokemon Arcanine. Much to my surprise, we're faster, and Surf is enough to KO thanks to a critical hit. That was a borderline sweep. We beat Blaine and get the TM for Fire Blast. This is finally a replacement for Fire Spin on Fire Breath, which has not been useful up to this point. Nothing of note happens in the Sevi Islands, so let's move on to the 8th and final gym leader, Giovanni. Rhyhorn gets 1-hit KO by Surf and Dugtrio is out next, but somehow Leonardo is faster. Its defenses are paper thin, so it also goes down in 1 hit, and next up is Nidoqueen. Once again we outspeed and go for a Surf, which is enough to KO from full health. Next up is Nidoking, but you guessed it, 1-hit KO by Surf. We're already down to his final Pokemon, but it's another Rhyhorn, so I let Boop take this one and also 1-hit KO with a Surf. Okay, that was the easiest gym fight. I do a little bit of training, and as you can see our levels are pretty good now, so I decide it's time to take on Zwigo once again. This fight actually went pretty well. Pidgeot is out first, so I start with Petri and go straight for Rock Slide. It does great damage and he just decides to go for Feather Dance, so 1 more Rock Slide is easily enough to KO. Next up is Gyarados, so I swap into Hitmonbra and go straight for a Thunder Punch, but we do get hit with the Hydro Pump for a good amount of damage. Because of our pitiful special attack though, Thunder Punch hardly does anything. I decide to stay in and go for another one, but he just sets up the rain. A second Thunder Punch brings it down to KO range, but I do not want to take a boosted Hydro Pump, so I swap into Leonardo. He actually ends up missing the Hydro Pump though, so we can just outspeed and KO with a Surf. Next up is Venusaur, so I swap into Fire Breath. The rain is still pouring, so our Fire Blast won't do much damage, so I decide to go for Dig as we get hit with a Sweet Scent. He does boost his stats as we hit a Dig for small damage, but the rain now stops. We get hit with a Razor Leaf, but it really doesn't do that much damage, but we hit back with a Fire Blast and it does great damage. We take a second Razor Leaf with health to spare and just finish it off with 1 more Fire Blast. Rhyhorn is up next, but you already know how this goes. 1 Surf from Boop is all it takes. Growlithe is out next, so I stay in and go for another Surf, which he just survives on a Sliver, but he just decides to go for Agility and then Take Down, which means he knocks himself out with the recoil damage. Look at Zwigo here with all these 10,000 IQ plays. Alakazam is out next, so I swap into Clover as we get hit with a Psychic, which does about half. Strength is also enough to 2-hit KO, but I do not want to risk getting KO'd by a Psychic. I swap into Leonardo, who's pretty much our bulkiest Pokemon, but he just goes for Disable. We add Alakazam to the list of Pokemon we really shouldn't be outspeeding and just KO with a Surf. We beat Zwigo and make our way through Victory Road until we arrive at the Pokemon League. Before challenging the Elite Four though, I decide I need to evolve Boop. We get him all the way to level 53 and then just use the 2 rare candies that we had to get him to level 55 where he evolves into a Dragonite. As I said before, Dragonite is an insanely good Pokemon, so I am really happy to have this on the team, and at the most important time as well. It's also worth noting that at this point, Boop had definitely become a fan favourite of the team. With our fully evolved and trained up team, I take on the Elite Four. First up is Ice-type user Lorelei, who always gives me trouble. First up is Dewgong, so I start with Hitmonchan. Straight away we get outsped and hit with a Surf, but we take the hit no problem and fire back with a Brick Break, getting a critical hit for the KO. Next up is Slowbro, so I swap into Clover and go straight for a Thunderbolt. It does great damage, doing about half, but we get the paralysis as well. She does go for Amnesia though, which means our Thunderbolts are not going to be doing that much damage, so I go for Strength instead. I was hoping that with Stab it would be enough to KO, but she hangs on and hits back with a Surf. We take the hit and go for 1 more Strength, but she hangs on with a sliver of health. She gets fully paralysed, but of course, she uses a full restore. I really should have gone for Thunderbolt here. I decide to swap into Leonardo as we get hit with a Surf, but it really doesn't do that much. I go for Strength, which does decent damage, but she just goes for another Amnesia. Eventually we whittle it down with a few more Strengths, and finally Slowbro goes down. Cloyster's out next, so I swap back into Clover as she just goes for a Hail. I hit back with a Thunderbolt, and as you know, Cloyster's special defense is absolute trash, so it goes down in 1 hit. Jinx is out next, so I swap into Fire Breath, but we get put to sleep. We get hit with a few weak Ice Punches, but we do eventually wake up and go for Fire Blast, which does good damage. Of course though, she goes for another full restore as we hit a Quick Attack, which does decent damage considering. I don't want to get hit again, so I swap into Leonardo, but we get put to sleep again. It got a little bit close for comfort, but we did eventually wake up and hit a strength, but it's not quite enough to KO, and then we get hit with an attract. This is not good. I swap back into Fire Breath, and thankfully she misses the Lovely Kiss this time, which means we can just finish it off with a quick attack. I swap in Hitmonchan for a final Pokemon Lapras, but we get outsped. We just about take a Surf and hit back with a Brick Break, but it doesn't do anywhere near as much as I was expecting. This is really bad. No one on my team really wants to take a Surf, so I make the heartbreaking decision to sacrifice Hitmonbruh. I go for Mach Punch to do as much damage as I can, but we go down to one more Surf. Rest in peace. I swap into Clover, who tanks an Ice Beam, and hit back with a Thunderbolt, praying it'll be enough to KO, but she hangs on. But we get the Paralysis, which means we can actually outspeed now. We hit one more Thunderbolt and beat Lapras, and that's Lorelei done. But we did lose a team member, which is not ideal. Bruno, by comparison, was a complete pushover. Leonardo takes out the first Onix with a Surf no problem, and Hitmonchan is up next. I swap into Petri and go straight for an Aerial Ace, which does good damage. He does hit back with a Rock Tomb though, and he gets a critical hit. We very nearly lost Petri then. I think we're going to be slower as well now, so I have no option but to swap into Leonardo. This was a life-saving play as he goes for Mach Punch, which obviously would have KO'd, but Leonardo takes it like a champ and hits back with a Surf for the KO. Hitmonlee's up next, and I know it's more frail than Hitmonchan, so I swap back into Petri and go for Fly. It doesn't miss or anything, and it's enough to KO from full health. Machamp is up next, so I swap back into Leonardo and go straight for a Surf. It does under half as he hits back with a Rock Tomb, which I'm not too scared by. We're still faster, and one more Surf brings it down to KO range, as he just goes for Scary Face for some reason. He just really wants to lower my speed, I guess. He does heal up with a Citrus Berry, but then he misses the Cross Chop, meaning that one more Surf is enough to KO. I stay in for the final Onix and we get outsped and hit with an Earthquake, but it hardly does anything, and one Surf is obviously enough to KO, winning us the second fight of the Elite Four. Next up is Agatha, who was a little bit more difficult. She starts off with a Gengar, so I go for Clover, and immediately she starts setting up double teams. I still hit the Psychic though, and it does over half. Unfortunately though, she uses a Confuse Ray the next turn, and we end up hitting ourselves in Confusion. She sets up even more double teams, and we end up missing a Psychic, as she confuses us yet again. This went on for a little while until we eventually get hit with a Toxic, but eventually we do hit another Psychic, which is enough to KO from there. Next up is Golbat, so I swap into Petri and go straight for a Rock Slide, which does good damage. Once again though, she goes for Confuse Ray, but we don't end up hitting ourselves. We land a second Rock Slide for an easy KO, and next up is Arbok. I decide to just swap into Leonardo for this one as it's our strongest Pokemon, and I outspeed and go for a Surf, which does over half as she just wastes a turn going for Screech. Because of this, we can just go for one more Surf for the knockout. Her second Gengar is out next, so I go back into Clover, but she has Sludge Bomb on this one. We do manage to survive the hit though and fire back with a Psychic, but it doesn't even do half. We're definitely not going to survive another Sludge Bomb, so I decide to swap back into Leonardo, who takes a Sludge Bomb with ease and fires back with a Surf. She just hangs on with a sliver of health though, and puts us to sleep with Hypnosis. She's still not doing much damage though, and it doesn't take us long to wake up, so we can just finish it off with one more Surf, and it's already down to our final Pokemon Haunter. It's time for Dragonite's debut battle. I decide to go for Wing Attack, which actually brings it down all the way to a sliver of health, as she just goes for Mean Look. I wasn't planning on going anywhere, so even with a full restore, we can just take it out with one more Wing Attack. I am really glad that that fight is over. The final member of the Elite Four is Dragon Master Lance. He starts off with Gyarados, which isn't a Dragon type, so I lead off with Clover. He goes straight for Dragon Rage, but we have loads of HP, so that's not a problem, and fire back with a 4-time super effective Thunderbolt. It's not quite enough to KO, and obviously he goes for a full restore, but one more brings it down to red health, as he goes for a Hyper Beam, which is terrifying, but we do survive. One more Thunderbolt knocks it out, and next up is Aerodactyl, so I swap into Leonardo and go straight for a Surf. Leonardo finally gets outsped though and hit with a Wing Attack, but it hardly does any damage, and Surf brings it all the way down to a sliver. Once again he just goes for a Hyper Beam, but Leonardo's bulky and takes it no problem and fires back with one more Surf. Next up are his two Dragonairs, so I swap into our Dragonite and hit a Dragon Claw, which is an easy one-shot. The second one goes down the exact same way, so it's down to his final Pokemon Dragonite. It's 5 levels higher than us, but I decide to stay in. We actually outspeed and go for a Dragon Claw, but it doesn't even do half. He just wastes a turn going for Safeguard though, so we go for another Dragon Claw which leaves him on red health. Once again though, he just decides to go for Hyper Beam. Dragonite's pretty bulky, so he takes the hit, and Dragonite eats a Citrus Berry, but that's not a problem whatsoever, as one more Dragon Claw is easily enough to KO, knocking out Dragonite and winning us the final match of the Elite Four. All that's left now is the champion Zwigo. I'm not feeling too bad about this fight as we've only lost one member in this Elite Four run. First up is Pidgeot, so I start with Petri and go straight for a Rock Slide. Despite our level difference, it does about half, and we even get the flinch. This means we can go for one more and get an easy KO. Gyarados is up next, so I swap into Clover and the good luck continues. He misses a Hydro Pump, which means we can land a Thunderbolt which does great damage. Not only that, it paralyzes him. Clover really is our good luck charm. Now we outspeed and one more Thunderbolt is enough to KO. Next up is Alakazam, so I stay in. I go for Strength, but he sets up a Reflect. We actually get a critical hit though. He does end up using a full restore though, and our Thunderbolt doesn't do as much as I was expecting. We get hit with a Psychic this turn, which does a lot of damage, but we do survive and land one more Thunderbolt, which brings it down to about 50% of its health. I decide to swap into Leonardo as we get hit with another Psychic, but we take the hit. He just decides to go for Future Sight this turn as we hit a Surf, which I thought would KO, but he lives on the tiniest amounts of HP. I go for one more Surf, but he actually swaps into Venusaur. Obviously Surf hardly does any damage, and I need to get out of there. I swap into Boop as he starts charging a Solar Beam, but we also get hit with a Future Sight. He hits the Solar Beam, but we're 4 times resistant to it, though it hardly does anything as we hit back with a Wing Attack. It brings him all the way down to red health, but he does eat a Citrus Berry. I go for one more Wing Attack for the KO, but he swaps into Rhydon. Obviously Wing Attack hardly does any damage, but we have Surf, so I'm not really scared. I go for it, and as you'd expect, it is a one-hit KO. Alakazam is making its way back out now, so I swap back into Leonardo. I go for Surf, but of course he goes for another full restore, and Surf does about 50%. I go for another Surf, but I should have seen this coming, he swaps back into Venusaur again. It isn't enough to KO, so I decide to swap back into Boop once again, as he goes for another full restore. He goes for Growth this turn, which is kinda scary, but we hit a Wing Attack for well over half of its health. He goes for Sunny Day this turn, which I thought was a stupid play, but this actually did cause me some problems. I knock out the Venusaur with one more Wing Attack, and Alakazam is out again. I swap into Fire Breath because the sun is up, and I think we can take a Psychic. I go for Fire Blast as we get hit with a Psychic, and we do survive. Fire Blast hits as well, and it's enough to KO from there. It's now down to his final Pokemon Arcanine, and this thing's scary. I know he has extreme speed, so I have to make a choice, and unfortunately that choice is to sacrifice Fire Breath. He was a decent team member, but I feel this was the best choice. I swap into Boop and I'm feeling confident. I go for Earthquake as he outspeeds and hits a Flamethrower, and he gets the burn.
This is the one thing we didn't want to happen.
We hit the Earthquake and we actually end up getting a critical hit, but because of the burn it's not enough. This is where I have to make a decision. No one on my team wants to take an extreme speed, and if I switch Boop back in, he's just going to go down to a burn anyway. I decide to try my luck with Surf, but he actually heals with a full restore. This is not how I wanted this fight to go. Surf doesn't do much damage at all because of the sun, and much to my surprise we actually survive the burn damage. I stay in though and take an extreme speed, and Boop goes down. The chat was not happy at me for this, but I felt it was the best choice. Now the sun is faded though, I can swap into Leonardo for free, and our Surf won't be weakened. He goes for extreme speed, but we take the hit no problem and fire back with a Surf. It's enough to knock out Arcanine, and we win the fight, beating a Pokemon Fire Red Nuzlocke without catching any Pokemon. We may have lost some beloved team members along the way, but we managed to do it. This was by no means an easy challenge, but it was really entertaining to do. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let's talk about our team for a minute. Leonardo was with us the whole journey, and he was definitely the best member of the team by far. Clover and Fire Breath were with us for a long time, and they were both good members. Clover had a great moveset, and Fire Breath proved that Flareons aren't useless. They're still not as good as Vaporeon though, if you know what I'm saying. As I said, Boop was a fan favourite, and once it evolved it was a complete powerhouse. It's just a shame it didn't survive to the very end. Before we go, let's just pay respect to our fallen members, Cap, Mimian, Abra, Hitmonbra, Fire Breath, and Boop. You guys are gone, but not forgotten. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like and subscribe for more content just like this. And please consider following me on Twitter and Instagram, and joining the Discord. All the links you need will be in the description below. That's all from me, so thank you all so much for watching. Until next time.